Hi, Analisa 6 here with the December 2022 horoscope for the sign of Scorpio for your sun or rising, or both if you're double Scorpio. Scorpio, this is an interesting time for you. Every time I look at the Scorpio horoscope, I just feel like it's difficult. And I don't know if that's my projection of Scorpio or if it's just because things have been really difficult for you lately. Obviously, that's going to be dependent on all of your chart, right? Whether you're rising or sun, has been going through other things and then other planetary placements, your moon placement, all of that. But just in a general way, when I look at the general horoscope for the general Scorpio individual, it just feels like there is a lot of tension in your chart around specifically how you communicate with people. And it just seems like that's been kind of a theme for you for a while now. And I think it can be kind of hard for Scorpio sometimes to know how to communicate in certain situations because Scorpio can be a little bit withholding. And then by the time that the feelings come out, it can be very reactive. That's the Mars influence of Scorpio. Of course, it depends on all those other factors, right? So this is a big generalization, but essentially where certain things have been in the chart for Scorpio over the last month, you've been reflecting a lot on your self-worth, your finances, how those things are organized. You might have done some overspending in November. And so that might be something that you're reflecting on and kind of trying to figure out how to rein in by the beginning of December. Maybe not. It's also been an auspicious time for you with Venus passing through the money area of the chart. And so there's some things about, that can be positive, right? Like we can be on the up, or we can, Venus and Sagittarius can be very reactive at times too, in ways where you're having a lot of fun and not necessarily thinking about the consequences. And so you might start getting a little bit more reality focused after the first week of December, when Mercury and Venus moves into Capricorn. And so that's going to be entering the area of the chart that has to do with our perspective and our communication. And so your kind of style of doing things sometimes can be a little reactive. And with Capricorn, I don't want to say Capricorn's not a reactive sign, because I think it definitely can be. But I think that when Capricorn is doing things, it is pretty methodical. It is very linear and practical. And so the way that the energy is moving for all of us, but where it is hitting for you specifically, is to kind of get a more grounded approach, linear approach and perspective to how you're communicating and how you're expressing, your ideas with other people. So that's going to be a big theme for you for December. The full moon that we have at the beginning of the month, that is hitting on the 7th or 8th, depending on where you're located. That's going to be at 16 degrees of Gemini, and it's going to make a conjunction with Mars. And Mars is a big energy for you because it rules Scorpio. And so you already have a pretty strong connection to Mars, but Mars being in Gemini, very different energy. It blows us out, kind of emphasizes anxiety or overthinking tendencies. It can feel really erratic and intense. So this full moon's definitely going to be intense. And what's interesting is the area that it's hitting for Scorpio is, for a Scorpio rising, it would be happening in the 8th house. And the 8th house is the house that Scorpio traditionally rules. And so there's already this big theme around transformation and letting things go, which is already, full moons already represent that anyways. So that area also has to do with assets and shared resources. It also has to do with marriage and kind of some more of those commitments that we make to people that we might be sharing our money or living situation with. And there's just a lot of things going on in this chart for Scorpio that has a lot to do with shifting and completely changing the way that we're relating to our, marital partner or life partner, or even some business partnerships or our assets. We might need to make big changes when it comes to our finances and how we're managing our finances. Probably a time where we're reflecting on debt as well. So if you have debt that you need to pay off, or if you have debt that you are paying off, or you need to refinance, those are things that might come up for you during December as well. And that full moon might kind of be a catalyst for you to be reflecting on that and kind of wanting to let go of maybe some dynamics that you've had that are not in alignment with the direction that you're moving in for the new year. The other thing about Mars passing through this area, it's already been here for a while, but when a full moon's happening and we're kind of like getting that next kick in the ass to make a decision, or kind of, we know that some energy needs to shift, it can be combative. And so you might feel combative about certain aspects with your loved ones that you're dealing with in that way, especially if there's been a death in the family, or there's inheritance involved, or any kind of financial resources that are being shared. That could be something that comes up during this time, and it's not going to be an easy thing to navigate. Mars is not ever really an easy planet. So it's going to be really important with that Mercury coming into Capricorn that you don't come at this stuff in a reactive way. You come at it in a practical, what makes the most sense, what's going to be the best for the long term, and I think Capricorn energy is really, really good at doing that. It thinks about the long game, and it kind of hardens up in a similar way that Scorpio does, but it's not as emotional. It's not as emotionally reactive. It's a lot more grounded and boss like. And I think Scorpio possesses similar qualities, but it just gets expressed in a different way. Scorpio, the shadow side of Scorpio is it rules jealousy and like revenge and vengeance and spitefulness. And so that stinger that comes out when Scorpio can be poked can be really, really nasty, and can, Scorpio also, the other shadow is feeling victimized by circumstances. And so an unelevated Scorpio will oftentimes, when circumstances get hard, default into some of those feelings. And we all have them. I mean, every single human on the planet has those feelings, or is capable of feeling those things. But those feelings are often represented by the sign of Scorpio in the lower vibrational part of Scorpio. Scorpio has 3 different tiers, and the lower tier represents more of the lower scorpionic energy that's jealous or vengeful or spiteful or victimized, those types of things. And so sometimes when Scorpio can be triggered, by something like this Mars and Gemini energy conjunct the full moon, those things can get triggered and come out. And Capricorn, while Capricorn can also be very intense when it's upset, and it can also say some hurtful things, and can also be very aggressive. It's also a very competitive energy, similar to Scorpio. It also really has a better time thinking of the consequences. Like, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, so it thinks about the consequences. It thinks about the outcome of that. And so, Mercury in Capricorn, it might be helping you really ask yourself, okay, I'm feeling these feelings. Do I really want to show them? Do I really want to react in this way? What are the consequences of my reactions? What are the consequences of my reactions and actions? Venus in the mix with that Mercury might really help smooth a lot of that over. So it's supporting you in your communication and kind of thinking more about the consequences. So I think that's a really positive thing. By the end of the month, we have a new moon in Capricorn. And so this is also a really positive time for you to be setting intentions around how you perceive things and how you communicate about things. And if you do want to kind of get less emotional and more practical and pragmatic about the way that you're working things out, that's a great intention for you to set around how you absorb information and also how you share information. So that's good. And being more responsible and taking responsibility. I think that's another really important one to think about, is not just being a responsible person or a practical communicator, but also taking responsibility and taking accountability for our side of a dynamic. And I think that from my experience with a lot of my Scorpio people, it's hard. It's really hard for Scorpio sometimes, because Scorpio ruled by Mars can be just on the defense or on the offense or just reactive. And it's not always grounded, and it's not always able to see the whole picture, all the sides in the moment. And of course, this is a generalization of just the Scorpio energy. You have more than just Scorpio in your birth chart. And so different types of Scorpios are good at different types of things, but it's just one of the personality traits and one of the attributes that can happen. And so while Capricorn can be very self-centered too, and kind of miss the bigger picture often, it's a little bit more grounded and has more thought process in the moment sometimes about the consequences of what happens. Not always. Again, it depends on your entire makeup. But I think that the new moon energy is here to kind of help you, Scorpio, specifically around communication, on thinking about those things and thinking about how you want to move forward with your communication and how to have more grounded long-term thinking when it comes to your communication. I think one of my least favorite quotes is, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. In theory, that would be great, but words have power, especially if you're somebody like me that believes in spirituality and, I love witchcraft. I'm not going to lie. We believe that words have a lot of consequences, and we believe that your word is constantly fabricating your reality, and that you don't even have to say something. The thoughts, it's a radio frequency. Your thoughts have an impact on your reality. So if you're thinking that you're a victim, or if you're thinking that you have to be spiteful or vengeful, or you're thinking that you have to be reactive or manipulative or strategic in some way to get the outcome that you want, you're sending that energy out there, right? And so it's stuff that this opportunity of the new moon and Mercury and Venus in Capricorn, Brucey, sorry, every video that I make, I'm gonna have to deal with my dogs barking at things occasionally when they see the squirrel out there. I'm also a dog trainer, so it's really unfortunate that I don't have better management in place. It makes me look really bad. But they get to do whatever they want. I don't really care, but we're going to hear Bruce barking sometimes. But yeah, so just kind of on that vein of the Capricorn energy, it's really positive for you to kind of figure out how to utilize being more practical, detached, and pragmatic in your communication style, and then thinking about the consequences of what you say and how you think about things. That's the theme essentially for this transit for the Scorpio Sun rising horoscope. Of course, on an individual level, when you get into doing your transiting charts and looking at your actual birth chart, it's more nuanced than that, but that's the generalization. We also have the new moon conjunct with Jupiter, and I'm sorry, it's not conjunct, it's squaring Jupiter in Aries, which is a pretty intense energy. And this is actually going to be impacting your relationship to how you express yourself. So again, this has to do with communication and how you're putting yourself out into the world, whether the way you express yourself is also in alignment with your values. That's part of the Mars Gemini theme. Mercury is going to station retrograde in Capricorn at the end of the month, and that's going to last through the first half of January too. So again, your words have consequences. So whatever you say, there's going to be a consequence to that. And so it's really important for you to think about that and care about it, because when the Mercury retrograde happens, you're reaping what you sowed prior to that. And it could be good, it's dependent. If you have great communication and you're putting good things out there, you should be getting some good things back, but if it's not, if you've had some tension and some difficulties, by the end of the month and throughout January, you're going to be sorting that stuff out, right? You're going to be working through it. And that Jupiter square, that tension, it's going to happen. Like, you're going to be experiencing the consequences from whatever that tension is causing. So then because of where Mars is, it could be in relation to your relationships. It could have to do with shared resources. And when I say shared resources, I'm talking about anything that we share that is a resource with another person. So that could be roommates, business partners, marital partners, family members, anybody that we're sharing our resources with. Yeah, that's why I kind of started out saying it's a little bit hard of a time for you, Scorpio, just because it's just some difficult things that you have to work through. But of course, Venus being in there, that it could be really a good time for healing to occur and for some progress and momentum to be made around it as well. That is your horoscope for December. Good luck, Scorpio.